This episode is brought to you by Libro FM. Libro FM is the first and only company which lets you purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore. You can pick from more than 150,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there. You know the name. But you'll be part of a different story, one that supports community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to get more books into your busy life. Listen during your commute, while doing chores, walking the dog, or just relaxing at home. All you need is a smartphone and the free Libro FM app. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations and curated lists from people who know audiobooks best. Booksellers. And us. We also have a playlist on there full of books that have been recommended on this podcast. Books in the Freezer special offer. You get 2 audiobooks for the price of one, just $14.99, with your first month of membership using code FreezerBook. This offer is valid for new members in Canada and the United States. Thank you, Libro FM, for supporting the show. Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I'm joined by author V. Castro to discuss her upcoming novel, Goddess of Filth, and all things horror. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's really exciting to be here and, to talk about these books. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. So I am so excited for Goddess of Filth, which is set to come out March 30th. So for listeners who are unaware, can you tell us a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah. Well, basically, it's, 5, I'm from Texas. There's 5 Chicanas from Texas, Mexican-American girls just out of high school, kind of, finding their feet, each one of them doing different things. And they decide to, kind of like The Craft, decide to have a little seance, have a little fun. They're sneaking some booze, just girl time.
Yeah.
But the seance does not go as planned, and that's when it kind of takes a twist towards the possession trope. And I wanted to, I love possession stories, but they're all the same. As I was saying kind of last night on the Women in Horror panel, you always in the films get, the young girls in a dirty white nightgown being strapped to a bed, thrashing about, like looking like hell. So I thought, well, how can we turn this around? And also, how can I incorporate my culture and where I grew up and just some different ideas about possession and what it means to be possessed and what happens when you're possessed by your personal power, when you find it. So that's kind of
that.
that is how that's how it went. Yeah. I don't want to say too much. I want people to be surprised.
Yeah, I am beyond excited. Also, the cover for it is so good.
I love it. It's gorgeous. I love the colors. I love the colors. I love pink. So yeah, I was really excited when I first saw that. It's like, it's crazy because when you first get those things done, it's like so far in advance, and to know that it's already here, you're like, shit. As we were saying before, like a baby, like you look and you're like, oh my God, I worked so hard on this book, and now it's already here.
That is crazy to think. But I am so excited about that, especially coming of age stories. I feel like they're fairly common in horror, and they're always usually like a group of boys. So I just always get excited. And there's been a few recently where it's like a group of girls, but just extra excited for that Latinx representation, because that's something else that we absolutely need in horror.
Well, let me get you an arc and then you can start on it.
Oh man, that would be the best.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, no problem. You know, that's what they're there for. That's what they're for.
So tell me about your history with horror, the horror genre.
Yeah, well, again, you know, it's a common question a lot of people ask me, and you know, there's only one answer, and that's just it really has a lot to do with my culture and being introduced to folklore and urban legends from a really young age, knowing about Mexican Aztec mythology, bits and pieces, not too much, but enough to really be excited about it and intrigued about, and you just it captivated my imagination, and so I just turned those stories around, and I wrote my own little stories when I was a kid, and you know, having a really active imagination and drawing pictures, and I've actually shared that on Instagram before, because I still have like all the little books I made when I was a kid, and it just went from there. But you know, it wasn't until later in life that I needed something in my life, and I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna go for it. I have this idea. I want to write. And I haven't stopped. So it was kind of like, it was always meant to be. But sometimes when things are meant to be, they don't happen and materialize straight away. You have to kind of be ready for them. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. It was just natural.
So growing up, like, did your family use like La Llorona as like discipline? Because mine did.
La Lechuza, and you know, you're gonna really get it. And in South Texas, well, San Antonio, there are a lot of like haunted places. So one place, which is in my book Hairspray and Switchblades, Espada Park is an old mission. So you know, the Spanish, when they came over, they put missions everywhere, and once Mexico became part of Mexico became part of Texas officially, all the there's missions everywhere, and this particular mission is supposedly really haunted, and it is very creepy. And then there's, you know, all these places that you kind of hear about. In November, I have another book coming out, Mestiza Blood, from Flame Tree Press as well, and I take all of those stories from Texas, like where the devil danced with the woman, the Donkey Lady Bridge, and I've created all those into like real stories. So I've taken these urban legends I grew up with, and I've kind of brought them to life.
Well, that's awesome. So it's like a short story collection.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So like all these haunted things, I'm like, ooh. So yeah, the discipline was the supernatural is just going to devour your soul. I don't care if you're 6.
So I did have two Patreon supporter questions, and one isn't a question, but it's from our Lara, who says, not so much question, but would just like to say, I very much enjoyed the Cucuy of Cancun story from Worst Laid Plans, and I was so excited to see the boogeyman woman of my childhood in a very awesome short story.
Oh, I'm so glad that people love that story. It was really fun to write, and actually, just FYI, I am working on now a book called The Pink Agave Motel, and you're going to get more of her.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you said that, because the next question is from Danielle, who asks, where do you get inspiration for the blend of horror erotica? But when can we get more stories from the Pink Agave Hotel?
I'm working on it now. I'm about halfway through. And yeah, it takes, I have like a 3 short story collection, Sed de Sangre, and in there's a very, very explicit hot story called Snake Hips. And so you're going to get more of that character. And so I take you into the motel, and it's set in Philadelphia, the actual property. So the Cucuy is in Mexico, and she travels up to Philadelphia. And it's kind of, yeah, you're going to get a ton of stuff. And the story, though, there is kind of almost a bad romance. So it's a erotic horror romance kind of blend. So you're going to get all of these crazy characters, sorcery, and yeah.
Very exciting. So you have a lot of things coming out.
Well, that I have to finish writing.
Yeah. I mean, you have like 3 things coming out this year, so people will have enough to keep them busy until then.
Oh yes, and I love it, and like my brain loves. It can't sit still. It's kind of a reward in its own. So I'm glad people like the kukui. You're gonna get more of her.
That's awesome. I definitely remember my mom mentioning that, like, el kukui is gonna get you if you don't like go to sleep right now. But then I would be like, but what is the kukui? Like, what are its motivations? What does it look like? And it's like, it's a book.
It's just evil. Now go to sleep.
But I'm like, La Llorona has like a whole backstory. She's got motivations. She's got like.
God, and then she's like, okay, no more library for you.
Yeah, she's like, just go to sleep. It's gonna get you. It doesn't matter when it's getting you. You're not gonna think about this.
I totally understand that.
Yeah, Danielle also asked where you get the inspiration for the blend of horror and erotica.
Okay, so if we want to like real talk, lady talk, I like sex. Sorry, okay, guys, if you have young kids in the room, put your headphones on.
I'll mark it explicit, like they'll know.
I like sex. I enjoy sex, and I think it's something. Why I just, if I feel like writing it, I do. I actually was asked this question before, like, how do you incorporate it? Actually, for an interview for Lit Reactor that comes out next month. And I don't always set out like, ooh, I'm going to write some banging scenes here, literally. It just, I get a story, and then if I feel it, if I'm in the mood, if it's on my mind, if I if I have like a fantasy, then I indulge it and write it. So yeah, so that's what I do. And it really just is, I let my imagination go, I let my thoughts go, I let the story go where it is. And then when you do the drafts, then that's when you kind of say like, okay, how does this, fit in? What am I trying to say? What am I but sometimes it's just like the hardcore stuff where it's just fun. And but so the Pink Agave Motel, you'll get a lot more of it.
Yeah, I do like that sex positive angle in your stories. I think especially in like Hairspray and Switchblades, where the protagonist of the story is a dancer and, she's very open with who she is. She enjoys her job. She's good at it. And it doesn't fall into the tropes like, she doesn't need to be rescued. She doesn't fall into all these tropes that we often see with these types of stories.
Yeah, and she likes sex, and she's like, oh, this guy's really hot and he turns me on and he's exciting, and I think women should be able to say that, like, I'm excited, I'm aroused, and I like you, or I want you. Why not? I know it's not always appropriate, but it's that's just the way it is. I think more women should feel less ashamed for their bodies and how their bodies react to whoever they're sexually desiring.
Agreed. We need more sexually unapologetic heroines.
But I also write a lot of masturbation in my books as well, in my stories, because it's like it's just normal. Yeah. But that's to answer a question. It just happens like sex. It just
happens. And I do love that about your stories. They definitely have that, like, all of them have like at least a little bit of sexiness.
Yeah. Oops, my panties. Where'd they go? Oh, across the room. How did that happen?
So also at the end of Hairspray and Switchblades, it kind of opens up for maybe some more entries in that universe. Is that a playground you see yourself going back to and expanding at all?
What's funny? I was laying in bed today and I was just thinking about that. Because I At the end, there's a character named Jimena. I wrote a short story. Actually, that short story about Jimena, was written before Hairspray and Switchblades. It was accepted to a collection that has never seen the light of day. I don't know if with actually a decent publisher. I don't know what happened with it. But I was so kind of taken in by this idea and the concept that I just started writing more. So I definitely have the material there to continue. It's just a matter of doing it.
Well, I would hope so, because that was one where I read it and I was like, okay, well now I'm invested in this like universe, and I'm like, let's
It's
see
funny you
more.
say that because the jaguar. So the Pink Agave Motel and also in Snake Hips, you kind of get the jaguars, but as they are. So I mentioned the jaguars, but actually them showing up, they might show up in the Pink Agave Motel as well.
So are all your stories kind of contained within this multiverse?
I'm trying. Some of them are, yeah, I'm trying. If they fit. So I'm currently finishing up a another one called Malinali, and I mentioned the jaguar again because it's a very special creature culturally, and it's a powerful creature, and I think it's a powerful creature for women, especially. I don't know why, I just have this feeling, and so I like having that, and I like having animals in my stories, just because I feel like animal guides and having kind of, I think when you're kind of in a bad space or you yeah, I just think it's not, I think animals are really special and they can provide comfort and they can provide strength. So I always have the animals in there. So yeah, the jaguar. So why not be a jaguar? Because I mean, we are animals, really. Let's also be ones with teeth.
Absolutely. So now that you've written vampire, shapeshifter, witchy possession, is there a horror trope you are itching to write one day?
Again, funny you should mention it. Yeah, I really want to write an alien. I really want to write for the Alien franchise.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So I'd love to do a whole Latina kind of um, universe with the alien or predator. I'd love an AVP book. That's kind of like my goal. But yeah, I I'm open to so many things when it comes to tropes. I actually started, and Cassie, I don't know if you know Cassie, she's in the horror community. She's um, an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I over the Christmas holidays, I had an idea, so I wrote a children's book uh, about Krampus. So, and his daughter, well, it's now a she. Krampus is now a mom, and her daughter Krampolina. So we've got the illustration together. So I'm doing kind of like a children's, not so much horror, but like a children's semi horror Christmas book, and
Oh,
then
nice.
a picture book, yeah, and then in Latinx Screams, I wrote a story called um, Krampus versus Pancho Claus, and I've started the story, a children's Christmas book um, about Pancho Claus.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Well, so both of them, they're written because they're children's books, so they're quite simple. Um, and Cassie's working on the illustrations, and then so I can like pitch them to publishers and agents. But yeah, so that's probably an area I really enjoy because I have children. Other than that, there's not a trope I say like, oh, I really want to get into. If I want it, I'll just do it.
Yeah, you don't keep it in the someday. You just start.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, if the idea hits, and that's how I kind of go. I just go with the flow. Like if the idea is there, then I'll start it. If it just stops, like hits a brick wall, then I've hit a brick wall and I move on. And if it sparks again, I come back to it.
So, also speaking of another book that you have coming out this year, you have Queen of Cicadas coming out this summer from Flame Tree Press. So, can you tell our listeners about that?
Yes. Wow. Queen of the Cicadas is like kind of a special book because I'm a great granddaughter of farm workers, Mexican farm workers, and Chicanos are very different from Mexicans. The Mexican American experience is different from this experience in Mexico, and I kind of wanted to center a story around urban legend, which I grew up, and farm work, and then also the Aztec mythology. So I started writing it, and then American Dirt came out, and it really made me just beyond angry. It also really sent me in a bit of a feeling of despair. And so the opening of it is quite strong, and that was taken from pieces of her book that I just found really hurtful. So it's kind of like a three sentences of revenge in the opening, like in italics. But basically, it's all those things. It's centered around a hate crime in 1950s Texas, and spans from that time frame to 2018, and it also incorporates the Aztec goddess of death. And I wanted to just have all of these women from come together from different time periods, different spiritual realms, in different with I guess different frame of minds, and how they're all tied together by fate. And so that's basically, and I talk about the Bracero program, which was huge, which brought a lot of Mexicans into the United States during the 1940s to help out when a lot of people, men, especially men, were sent off for World War II.
Well, yeah, I didn't know about that, so I looking
Yeah, so you're
forward
gonna
to
get,
it.
you get a lot of, and it's quite there's some gruesome scenes, like really like horrific, like death by cockroach, um, literally death by cockroach, spiders, we get it all.
What was I going to say? So, did you hate read American Dirt?
I didn't read it because I
I
I
wouldn't
didn't.
didn't
buy
either.
it. I wouldn't buy. I'm not putting money. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the parts that I did read and the things I've read about it, also the fact that, the publisher put barbed wire
Uh,
centerpieces on the table, the fact that she had a barbed wire manicure and was showing it off, I found it so just grotesque.
Yeah, it was very distasteful.
Yeah, it was extremely grotesque, and I brought all of that up when I was talking to the marketing person for Sarah, marketing person. I said she has a name. Sorry, Sarah, Sarah from Flame Tree Press about it. Like when we were like, okay, so tell me about this book, and I said, well, this is how I feel, and this is what I'm going to say if it ever comes up. That I was really, really, I just couldn't believe my eyes when all that came out. So so there's a lot of feeling into that book. So I'm glad it's coming out.
That's another one. Like I think it like popped up on my Goodreads, and I'm like, oh yeah, like it's coming. It's here now.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, what you said about the Mexican American experience being different from the Mexican experience just reminded me of that quote from Selena, Selena's dad.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and yes, it is so true. And it's funny. I love that movie. And it really is. You're kind of you struggle with your identity. You're okay, so which one are you? Who are you? And also then you're stuck with, well, if you want to get ahead, you have to choose wisely, which is really sad. And I
Yeah.
said that last night on the Women in Horror panel. Like, it is, it's tragic that you have to disassociate yourself from your true identity and your roots just to get ahead and to be accepted. Like that, it's not nice or fun.
But yeah, it's definitely just that in between, like, you don't really fit into either side. It's a lot. Well, because like my sister and I, like, grew up, like my parents got divorced when I was 10, and I grew up, like around my mom and her side of the family, which was very Mexican. So like I was very much in that culture. Like it was Southern California. We would like go to Mexico. I hung out with all my Mexican cousins. But when my parents got divorced, my mom remarried a white guy and my sister was little. So like that's kind of been her experience. Like she doesn't really feel connected to like that side of her at all. So we've just had like very different experiences
Yeah,
to
I hear
that.
you. I had the same kind of experience as well. My mom remarrying and having other children. I mean, I love my sisters. We're really close. But yeah, it's a total different experience. And also being I'm older, so we were raised very differently. Just like, I raised my children very differently from when I was raised. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember watching Chud, The Exorcist, Demons, like all that stuff so young. And now I'm just like, with my kids, what is it rated? What is it? Is that, what are those words? I mean, just really kind of watching everything. Um, but also, there was like no internet or social media growing up. So,
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Yeah, I was tortured by my cousins because I was like the baby that was like brought along, and I was like the youngest one, so they would like torture me with horror movies growing
oh,
up.
and now you love it.
And now I love it. Joke's on them.
Exactly.
So, also, people might know you have the Fright Girl Summer website, which, if people don't know, is a great resource if you're looking to read more women in horror. So, how did that come about?
So again, I just kind of, I try my best. Sometimes it doesn't always work. I try to like go with the flow and go with instinct and go with my mind, go with my heart a lot. And I just, I felt like there just wasn't enough for women from marginalized communities. Um, like enough platforms, there wasn't enough space. And then the pandemic hit, and it's like everything's canceled, everything slows down, everybody's at home. And I was just like, well, if there's no space, you create a space. Um, Wix is like quite inexpensive. And then I just randomly put a tweet out there about it. And Sonora Taylor, author of Seeing Things and Without Condition, she was like, oh, I'll do it with you. And also, it's called Fright Girl Summer because I'm a real big Megan Thee Stallion fan. And I love her song Hot Girl Summer. And I was like bopping to that nonstop. And I'm like, I love Megan Thee Stallion. And it's like Hot Girl Summer, like Fright. And then Sonora was like, how about Fright Girl Summer? And I'm like, yes, yes. And so it just, again, it just happened. Um, you know, I I get an idea in my mind, I get something, I feel something in my heart, my gut, and then I'm just like, hey, and then I do it, or I say it, or I reach out, or whatever it requires me to do. But yeah, and it's just kind of gone from there, and like then Black Lives Matter, like everything after it was kind of like, let's do Black Voices Matter, um, let's celebrate diverse women, and let's women from diverse backgrounds, let's just expand it, and it's just kind of grown from there, and try to do as much as possible. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So yeah, anybody who's listening, there are so many reading lists, there are essays, there's interviews, there's you name it, there's like 30 free short stories for you to read. I've taken my short stories off there because I'm going to put them in a new collection. But yeah, there's ton. And also for any women out there, you please go to the website. You can submit your short stories. You can tell us about what you have going on. If we can promote you in any way, hit us up.
Nice. And yeah, even though it is Fright Girl Summer, it is an all year round effort.
We're about to, in like whatever, what is today, the 27th, or like in a day or two, we'll change the logo again to yeah, Fright Girl Spring. So new logo, really pretty. It's really pretty. And yeah, all year round, read because the point is read women all year round.
Yeah.
Support women.
Yeah, because I think, well, we're recording this in Women in Horror Month, but we should be reading women all year round.
Absolutely.
So, as a reader, having read horror books, what is a book that you personally would put in the freezer?
Hmm. Oh, God. I I don't know. I am like I hate these books. So someone asked me last night. So we had it was like, okay, your top three, and then your top three, and I'm like, I can't do this. It's too much pressure. Yes, the song I could do easy, but honestly, books, I just feel like books are just so different. They're like people. It's like kids. Like, who's your favorite kid? Which kid do you really dislike secretly? I can't. There's too much pressure. So I'll, I'll put myself in the freezer. How's that?
Okay.
Same with horror films. I cannot make it. I cannot make up my mind for anything. For worst, for best, for mediocre, for the la 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 la. I cannot.
I know. I was just telling my husband, well, I go through things where, like, if I watch two horror movies in a row that are both like 2-star movies, I get that existential, like, do I even like horror? Who am I? And then if I watch like 3 movies that are like 5 stars, am I too easy? Do I just like everything?
Yes, I know. And then it's like, I know. It's just it's so hard when you. But they're all like fingerprints. They're all like
Mm-hmm.
snowflakes. They're just all so different. Some, and also everybody, and I think this is like a huge thing in the horror community. Someone will give a book a 5 star, and someone else will give it a 1 star.
Yeah.
Or they're like, I really hated the main character, and I give it to, and then the other person's like, well, I like that main character because it's just so subjective. Like you cannot
Yeah.
even like, yeah. I try to stay away from reviews for that, like unless it's deliberately tagged or something. But otherwise, I'm just like, okay, oh, um, because it's honestly so like people are still huge Stephen King's like are still reading King, and that's fine, that's great. But I stopped after The Dark Tower, like not even finished the series, just because I was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done.
So you didn't keep up with his new releases after that, or you just like didn't nothing
No,
after that?
no. Or the films. It's like how many stands, how many Pet Cemetery, like how many carries, how many.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, yeah, I just saw today they're gonna redo Pet Cemetery again, and I'm like, it came out like 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago. Please stop.
I'm like, really?
Nobody who wants this.
Queen of the Cicadas. Okay.
Here it is. It's fresh. It's new. It's hot. Let's get it.
Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, it just got to be where I was kind of like, okay. But yeah, but again, people are still like, oh my God, I have to have my king. He's not a
Yeah.
bad person, but I
Oh
just
no.
choose not to read it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of old like male authors from that era that I gave like one book, and I was like, nope, not for me. Maybe for you, not for me.
Hmm. And horror's just becoming so lively, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just really changing, and it's I love it. Even like horror films are changing big time. And you're just seeing so much more, and I love it.
Yeah, well, I think we're just getting so many new perspectives that we haven't gotten before, and it's just really, I think, breathed life into it as a genre.
100%. I mean, and with this pandemic, I think I've kind of exhausted. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel of Amazon Prime at the moment. And Netflix, I'm like watching the worst of the worst. And some of them aren't that bad, and then others you're just like, oh my God. But I'm glad I'm glad I watched it because I'm like, well, that's actually a very strange concept and it's bizarre, even though it's a terrible film. I like the direction you're going though.
Yeah, it's funny. That's like one thing my husband does not understand. I'm like, sometimes there's a terrible movie, but there's like a charm in it's like how terrible it is. And I'm like, my husband like does not understand the like. He's like, it's either good or it's bad. And I'm like, no, sometimes it's bad. Like I know it's not great, but it's nice.
Exactly.
And so, speaking of horror movies, what is your chilling obsession or thing you are enjoying in horror?
So like I said, I've reached the scraping of the bottom of the barrel, like the stuff that has like a 2 on IMDb. Um, so like I said, I really like possession as a trope, but I just keep seeing a lot of the women in the dirty nightgown tied to a bed and like going crazy. There is a film. Um, what is the English? Here Comes the Devil. It's a Mexican film.
Oh.
Here Comes the Devil, and like the the blood and kind of special effects aren't great. It's very reminiscent of like a 70s film, even though it wasn't um, made in the 70s. But again, it explores possession and it explores sexuality. So you've have this couple and they're in a car waiting and they end up fooling around and it's like they're talking about sex and something bad happens. Their parents, okay? And so it brings all of that up and the opening scene of the film is very graphic. Um, but again, it's that taboo. So Here Comes the Devil is kind of a good one. It's an older film. And I saw recently Gemma Moore posted about this movie called The Satan's Claw. And it was like from the 70s British film. And it's really bizarre. And again, the graphics are like, so like when Satan gets you, you got like a hairy patch on your leg. It just looks. But it's very midsummer. It's like midsummer goes 70s porno goes uh the witch. I mean, you just get like everything in there and it's just I was mesmerized, literally mesmerized. And I couldn't it's actually got a very high IMDb rating, but I just could not look away. Like the bad hairstyles and like the guy plowing the field without a shirt.
For reasons.
It's fucking England. There's no sun. Why? Um,
He's trying to get a tan because there is no sun. He's got to put in.
exactly. Again, you caught me. You caught me. I can't just. You're like, so what's the? There. It's just everywhere. It's just. I can't. I can't nail it down. I rewatched Demons. It's an Argento film. Recently, and I loved that. That's always like a solid one. Even though, again, the special effects are horrible, it still makes it great.
I still have to say that. That's on my watch list. There's so much coming out now that's like, there's a million like classic or like must see movies that I haven't gotten to, but then there's like new stuff coming out every week. And I'm like,
Yeah, I thought that there was a new Hellraiser that was coming out to like download or something. I'm like anything Hellraiser, yes.
so you watched that Judgment Day or
That
the.
was
That's
the
the one
last
I'm
one?
talking about. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one I want to watch.
I thought it was out already.
Yeah, but
I thought it was like a year or two ago.
I can't find it here. But which is weird because Clive Barker's British.
I think they would have priority.
Yeah. No, I want to see it. Yeah, I'm obsessed with Hellraiser. So like anything Hellraiser. I love Event Horizon. There's just too many.
I love Event Horizon.
I know there's just like so many good ones.
Okay, I won't make you pick just one. We'll just.
Yeah.
But one tradition that we do have that I told you about is we ask our guests to pick a final girl song. So what is your pick?
It is, because of my age, Violet by Hole. I don't know if you've heard that song.
No, I haven't. I know. I always feel like I should know that. I don't.
Violet by Hole. So Courtney Love had her band Hole, and Violet is just like it's quite ragey, and just the lyrics, she's like, go on, take everything. I want you to, I dare you to. And just the lyrics, I just think it's a great final girl song where it's just like, what, I've fucking had enough. I've just fucking had it. Try your best, motherfucker. I really, really feel, and I love the song. I that's kind of like that teenage angst period when, but yeah, that's it. Violet by Hole.
I mean, that sounds like it's got really good final girl energy. I love the
really good final girl energy. You could just see like her taking a machete and just whacking the fuck out of someone and just saying, no, I am not the one, not today. Not today, Satan.
Not today.
No.
All right. Well, I will add that to the Spotify list, and people can find that on Spotify. It's, if you search for it, it's BITF Final Girl. And yeah, that song has like energy all over the place, but I love like every song that people have picked.
Yeah, this is and I like I said, I'm a Megan Thee Stallion fan, like super fan. So a Hot Girl Summer is just one of those where you're just like, it's not really a final girl song, but it is. It could be. It could be like, they've defeated all the zombies and they're like floating on the yacht and they're like swigging the champagne, like, yeah, we fucked them up and now we're going to the island where there's no zombies and we're just gonna have a good life.
Victorious, yeah.
I could see it. I see it.
In the bikinis.
Yep. And then roll credits. I see it.
Yes, I would love to see the one girl splattered in blood, like hanging out in like a big unicorn floaty, and just like, we did it, girls. And then Hot Girl Summer comes up, real hot girl shit.
Hollywood, are you listening?
I know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. That was a really awesome talk. I always love talking horror, so unless I have to choose just like one thing.
Where can people find you online?
Yeah, well, on Instagram it's at VLatinaLondon, and on Twitter at VLatinaLondon, www.frightgirlsummer.com or vvcastro.com. And Goddess of Filth you can pre-order now from the Creature Publishing website, and Queen of the Cicadas you can now pre-order on Amazon or through Flame Tree Press.
Nice. And I will have links for all of that in the show notes, but be sure to get on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This was awesome talking.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Twitter at BooksFreezerPod or on Instagram at BooksInTheFreezer. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/BooksInTheFreezer. There is also a Facebook group if you would like to join that. If you would like to support Books in the Freezer, there's a few ways to do that. The first of which is to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/booksinthefreezer. There is a $1, $3, and a $5 level with all kinds of perks like early episode releases, group chats, bonus episodes, movie nights. So check that out if you are interested in that. You can also use our Amazon link, which will be in the show notes. And essentially you just click the link and do your normal Amazon shopping as you would normally do. Coolest things purchased recently using that link. One of them is a gaming mouse and a Rob Zombie CD. So thank you to those of you who use that link. It really helps out the podcast. But you don't have to spend any money to support the podcast. One thing you can do is tell your friends about it, post about it on social media, Word of mouth is huge. Leaving reviews on sites like Apple Podcasts, all of it is huge and very helpful. And thank you to those of you who have taken the time to do that already. I'm Stephanie. You can find me on Twitter at lady_Gagnon. That's LADY_GAGNON, or on Instagram at That's What She Read. And that's with 2 A's and then the rest of it just spelled normally. So thank you for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.